Have you ever been alone in the woods and felt a presence that made your skin crawl? The kind of feeling where the air is too heavy, the silence too complete, and the shadows move just a little too strangely? Tonight, we are going to explore 3 true woods horror stories so terrifying that the people who experienced them still wake up at night wondering if it was real or if they were just imagining it. These are real events, experienced by real people, and they will make you rethink ever going into the forest alone. The first story takes place in the Appalachian Mountains, a place known for its thick forests, steep hills, and isolation. Kevin, a young man in his 20s, decided to go camping alone for the weekend. He wanted peace, quiet, and the chance to escape the chaos of city life. He drove deep into the mountains and set up his small tent near a creek, surrounded by towering pine trees. The first day was perfect. He hiked, took photographs, and enjoyed the rustle of leaves in the wind. As night fell, he built a small fire, cooked his dinner, and sat quietly, listening to the forest around him. When darkness fully descended, everything seemed calm. But then, just as he was about to crawl into his sleeping bag, he heard it, a soft rustling outside the tent. At first, he thought it was a deer or a raccoon, but the sound grew louder, heavier, and slower. It was deliberate. Something was walking around his tent, pacing. His heart raced, and he peeked through the flap. Nothing, just shadows, flickering in the firelight. Kevin tried to convince himself it was his imagination, but then came the low growl. It wasn't like a bear or a dog. It was deep, guttural, almost human, but wrong. It made the hair on the back of his neck stand on end. Then he heard whispers, soft at first, like someone muttering behind the trees. The whispers grew louder, forming words he could barely make out. "Go, now. Leave. You shouldn't be here." Panic surged through him. He grabbed his flashlight and ran toward his car, tripping over roots and rocks, feeling eyes on him the entire way. He didn't stop running until he was safely inside the locked vehicle. The next day, he returned with a friend, hoping to find some explanation. What they discovered chilled them both. Around his campsite were large footprints, far bigger than any human, with elongated toes and deep impressions in the mud. Kevin couldn't explain it. There were no bears in the area large enough to leave such prints. That weekend haunted him for months, and he never returned to the woods alone. The second story occurred in the forests of Maine, a remote area known for dense trees, hidden lakes, and fog that rises unexpectedly. A group of college students went hiking for a weekend adventure. They pitched their tents near a secluded lake, the water smooth and still, reflecting the moonlight. At first, the weekend was fun, hiking, swimming, and laughing around the campfire. But on the first night, Sarah, one of the students, saw something moving in the lake. At first, she thought it was a fish jumping. Then, slowly, a dark figure emerged from the water. Its shape was humanoid, but distorted, its limbs moving unnaturally. The students laughed nervously, thinking it was a prank. Hours later, strange things began to happen. They heard footsteps circling their tents. Every time they peeked outside, there was nothing. Their fire flickered though there was no wind. Shadows stretched and warped, moving in ways that didn't make sense. Around midnight, Mark, one of the students, went to fetch water from the lake. He never returned. The group panicked, shouting his name, searching for hours in the darkness. Finally, they found him at the edge of the forest, trembling, pointing back toward the trees. He said he had been followed by something that looked human, but moved impossibly fast, its eyes glowing red in the dark. They didn't question him further and packed up immediately. None of them ever returned to that lake. The third story comes from the forests of Oregon, where a woman named Emily loved hiking alone. She often explored remote areas, enjoying the quiet and the connection to nature. One afternoon, she followed a trail deeper than she had ever gone before and noticed strange carvings on the trees. Symbols she did not recognize, etched with precision and care. She dismissed them, assuming other hikers had left them behind. As the sun started to set, Emily realized she had lost the trail. Her GPS device died, leaving her completely disoriented. the forest became unnaturally dark, as if the sunlight itself had been swallowed. Her dog began growling, hair standing on end, staring intently into the shadows. Then she heard chanting, soft at first, echoing between the trees, then louder, more rhythmic, coming closer. Panic set in. She tried to backtrack, but the chanting grew louder. A group of figures appeared between the trees, wearing black robes and masks. Their movements were fluid, silent, predatory. Emily scrambled to escape, dragging her dog, heart pounding, trying not to look back. She ran through underbrush, over fallen branches, and finally reached a faint river path that led her back to the main road. When authorities investigated later, there was no trace of the figures, no tracks, and the carvings had vanished. Emily never returned to that forest, and her dog refused to go near it again. These stories have a common thread. The woods are not as safe as they appear. They can be deceptively quiet, hiding dangers that lurk in the shadows. Whether it's unexplained footprints, glowing eyes, or masked figures. The forest holds secrets some were not meant to uncover. Some claim these encounters are paranormal. Others insist they are cryptids, creatures that walk like humans, but are not human. Yet others argue that isolation amplifies fear, creating hallucinations and paranoia that feel completely real. Kevin's footprints, Mark's red-eyed pursuer, and Emily's chanting figures may never be explained, but they remain in the memories of those who survived. These woods are alive in their own way, watching, waiting, feeding on fear, and guarding their mysteries. Every story warns of curiosity that goes too far, of wandering alone in places that are not meant for humans to be after dark. Even during the day, shadows can be long, noises can be deceptive, and the feeling of being followed can be real. Those who have encountered such things speak of adrenaline so strong it feels like it could tear the skin, of instinct telling them to flee even when reason says stay, and of the lingering dread that stays for months, sometimes years. They speak of moments frozen in time, when the air feels heavier, when the forest itself seems to hold its breath, and when the line between what is real and what is imagined disappears. So the next time you consider a hike in the woods, remember Kevin running through the Appalachian Mountains, Mark being stalked in Maine, and Emily fleeing through Oregon. Remember that some forests are not just forests. They are places where eyes watch, where whispers echo, where footsteps follow. They are places where curiosity can cost more than a day's adventure. It can cost peace of mind, and sometimes your sense of reality. Step carefully, listen closely, and do not assume you are ever truly alone. For in these woods, the night hides more than shadows. It hides stories. Stories of eyes that glow, footsteps that follow, whispers that warn, and presences that should not exist. Stories that people live to tell, but which haunt them forever. And when you hear these tales, when you imagine the trees closing in and the wind carrying voices you cannot understand, remember that every shadow, every rustle, every moment of silence could be more than it seems. The woods are patient, they wait, and for those who wander too far, who ignore the warning signs, they strike. These 3 stories are just a glimpse into the unknown horrors that lurk in forests across the world. There are countless more, stories of people who vanished without a trace, of figures glimpsed from the corner of an eye, of sounds that have no origin. But these 3, Kevin, Sarah, and Mark, and Emily, show us how quickly ordinary adventure can turn into a nightmare. And perhaps the most terrifying thought of all is this: you never know what is watching, waiting, listening, or moving in the dark. The next time you step into the forest, remember these true stories. Listen to the wind, watch the shadows, and never think for a moment that you are truly alone. Because in the woods, the rules are different. The air is heavier, the silence is louder, and the stories are very real.